your name and address.
Hi, I'm Megan O'Brien. I live at 42 Indian Hill Avenue. Earlier this budget season, I spoke with you about the need for a therapeutic program for our elementary level students. At the time, Dr. O'Reilly and the board discussed this option and included it in the budget proposal, which has since been slashed. I'm here to request that you do not cut this program from the budget for next year. At the time of the budget discussions, I believe that Dr. O'Reilly stated we'd have 14 students slotted to enter this program for next school year. Without this program, what happens to these students who truly need it? The schools have already put everything into place that they can. The needs of these students outreach what a regular school setting can provide. Without this program, the only other acceptable option would be outplacement. Outplacing a student in the state of Connecticut can cost between $70,000 to $200,000 for tuition for one student. We also would need to cover transportation, which can be around $30,000. Even if we were only to outplace half of the students who are currently in need of more than we can offer, that would cost us around $700,000 a year. And that's on the low end of the estimate. I also wonder how many students are currently outplaced who would be able to come back into the district if we had our own therapeutic program in place. My children have been very fortunate to have had amazing teachers supporting them. Valley View and Gildersleeve have been excellent to my children, and I know how hard the staff works daily to do what's best for all of our children. If we don't put a therapeutic program in place, we will all pay. The staff entering our buildings daily are suffering, yet come back daily to do what is needed for our students. Our students who witness these dysregulated behaviors on a regular basis are suffering. And most importantly, our students who are dysregulated need and deserve appropriate programming within our town. Please do not cut this program from the budget for this school year.
Any other public comment this morning? Okay, seeing none, there'll be another opportunity towards the end of the meeting. Discussion of the 2020-21 Board of Ed budget. Dr. O'Reilly provided us some information.
Now, for the public, you should have copies of what the board will be discussing tonight. And I'm going to walk everybody through it, including the board.
Is it on the tone and back?
It is.
Some handouts on the table in the back if you guys came in.
So Stephanie and I have spent a considerable amount of time in the last week looking at the proposed budget. And before I begin to talk about the process from January to now, I wanted to first provide you with that two-page sheet that is the front of this three-page packet, or three sides of a worksheet. Because a number of people have said to me, so I really want to better understand what our budget is all about and why there was a 4.46 increase. And so I asked Stephanie to identify all those pieces in the budget that contributed toward the larger increase. So I'm going to walk you through that as quickly as I can. But board members, obviously, questions, please ask. So, but this, you and I have walked through this, but it's nice sometimes to see it on paper. So we have 3 additional classroom teachers at the elementary level, kindergarten, 1st and 5th grade position. We have degree change increases. What that means is that when people move from columns, from bachelor's degree to master's degree to 6th year.
And that's pursuant to the contract, our teacher's contract.
Contractual, yep. Sped teacher for our therapeutic day program, clinician for our therapeutic day program, but I will note that that is being funded by our open choice money. Not to confuse people, but please understand, if we didn't have the open choice money, that would have to be funded by our operational account. That's why I kept it in there, so at least you understood that, all right? 8 paraprofessionals, and you've been briefed on that by Dawn throughout the fall. 8 new paraprofessionals. We made some cuts to athletics last year. We're reinstating those, and the summer curriculum, we had some increases in that. We continue to do a lot of curriculum work and to fund our teachers to do that curriculum work during the summertime. Increases in benefits, we put into the budget, the requested budget, a 7.5% increase.
Are we saving our questions to the end or by section?
Okay, let's do it by section. Salaries.
I didn't see the general increase in salaries. That's gotta be a big number.
So if you look on your own budget document, you'll see that general increase, I think.
Why wouldn't we
Am I
put it
right?
in here? It's a significant number.
Because I'm identifying those items that make it up. You know, I didn't put a total or a subtotal. In fact, one of the administrators asked me that today. I chose not to do that.
It also reflects the percentage increase to the contract.
I
People will,
put that line in there. I would've called it out, but-
people will get, I just thought that there's lots of numbers on this piece of paper, and when we talked about it, that, you know, we're not talking about totals. The purpose of this paper is to show you where the increases are, so that we break it down. Other questions about salaries?
I just want to agree with Dave on that. That is, you know, when you look at, I think it's 80%, almost 80% of the budget is salaries and benefits, and the bulk of that is salaries and wages. So that probably is a pretty big number when you look at
Almost
just the
500 grand.
contractual increases
Yeah.
Of the increase.
of the increase. And, you know, across the board, everybody's getting a raise of some sort, or a step or a raise. So it is a big number. But that's in my own, just to support what Dave is saying.
Other questions? Benefits, 7.5% medical insurance increase, FICA, Medicare increase due to increased staff, pension increase, and increased retirement projection. We were short on the retirement projection this past year, and so Stephanie really felt like we wanted to make sure we put additional money there. So that's why that occurred. Again, this is, in some sense for you board, this is old news, because we have talked about this. Purchase services, professional development, in-district curriculum consultants, our facilities assessment plan, you remember that one? Environmental control systems to make sure that we have a maintenance plan for our asbestos abatement projects. Remember we had the problem in the science lab line pit last June. We discovered that part of that problem was that it hadn't been having regular maintenance work, and so we put that in the budget. And then Charles's request for curriculum professional development workshops, trainings, increases for our teachers, which, given the size of our district, that's a very small increase.
So, the facilities assessment, that's the assessment that we talked about with Carl, to go through each of the school buildings, all of the schools, correct?
Yes, all 5 buildings.
Good.
Other questions? Technology. Self-explanatory Project Lead the Way Lab, Chromebooks, projectors, smart boards. I think there's a few more. Oh, and UPS devices. Some of which we have had cut from previous budgets or reduced significantly from previous budgets. Transportation, your 2.8% contractual increase in your in school busing, and your additional homeless busing that happens, that we put into the budget because last year we were short on that line. And then sped transportation, with some of the increases in student outplacements, we have sped transportation increases. And also, because of our preschool enrollment, an increase in servicing children 3 to 5 because of the special education plans and need for services, we've had to provide more transportation and expanded from just our bus, our local bus, driven by our driver, to one bus contracted with our bus services. All right. And then, as we explained back in January, Stephanie felt like because of the cuts that we have made to each of the schools every year, or the subsequent reductions we've had to make, let's make sure that we give them a small increase, and so there was a $5 per pupil increase in their spending, in their budget for next year. So those are your approved budget, larger ticket items. Obviously, it doesn't reflect the entire budget. So now we go to the second, more colorful pages. And the green. The green brings you from what was proposed to the superintendent of schools by all the principals and the departments to your approved budget. I'm going to pause there just in case you have a question.
So this, our approved budget, under the board.
These were the reductions that we made before we even brought it to you.
Before we even brought
We
it to
cut
you.
all this stuff already.
Again, I think we've discussed this, but I just want to refresh your memory with these particular cuts that were made, or reductions that were made, in order for us to get to a more reasonable number of 4.46. Any questions about the green section?
What, can you clarify the position moved to grant funding? What position, what, because I don't.
I think that's the clinician,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
but I'm not sure. Stephanie, do you know? Is it others?
No, it was another staff member, because we have increased funding, so we went to McDonough.
Okay, we moved one of our social workers over to, because of our increased open choice money,
Gotcha.
we're able to take that out of the budget, and that helped us lower it, lower the town's operational account.
Well, that's very clever. That's good.
We have to use
Yeah.
that, we'd like to use that money to help the district when we can.
And then you cut.
And we had increased student population this year, so that's why we didn't plan for it last year.
And then the certified position hired a .6, that's the ELL
Correct.
teacher.
And I just want to comment that we've already, last year, reduced the smart boards, the computers, the things, projectors. We had already diminished them quite a bit, and we're diminishing them again before, so that doesn't leave us in a very good position.
So then we move over to the orange. The top number is your approved budget. As I've stated every year that I've done this budget, between the early time that you approve this budget and the time that it gets to the town or the town vote, there are changes that occur, natural changes that occur. We have early retirement, we have late notification of retirements, we finally get our insurance money or costs for the next year. And so I want to walk you through these pieces. So SOS stands for Superintendent of Schools. You've hired a new superintendent of schools. You've identified a savings of almost $21,000. We've had two late retirement notifications. Because we then budget at $57,000, we have some savings in with that, with those two. Because we had originally budgeted for $87,000 for those particular positions. So we lower that budget allocation because we use that number, that average number that for what a new staff member would cost. Some minor changes to E-rate costs. We pulled out of, we moved our registration to Aspen. Holly Russo identified some savings that we could achieve through using a different platform for our registration. We had to explain the E-rate cost because that's actually an increase.
So, I originally had the E-rate, the Board of Ed portion that we were supposed to pay in the budget, in the original budget. But then when we were looking for cuts, it completely slipped my mind that the portion that we can get reimbursed from E-rate, we have to pay out of our LEA budget. We can't pay for it out of capital or, because then we can't get reimbursed for it. So I had to kind of flip-flop it and move back E-rate into the LEA budget, but we did get technology capital in capital, so I swapped out, the projectors, smart boards, UPS drives, and a portion of the Project Lead the Way lab to offset the difference. It's a little increase because I couldn't get it to match exactly, but that's really what it is. We have to, the portion that we're gonna get reimbursed, we have to pay for out of our line.
And then, so the good news, one of the good news that has come out within the last 10 days is the fact that we have put out the insurance to bid, and we will have a new contract, a new company, and we will sustain less of an increase, and that increase will be about 5.5%. So there's a little bit of a savings, additional savings on that, and then also workers' comp numbers came in, and we have some savings on that. So some of these things don't come in until February and March. So it really brings our original 4.46 budget down to a 3.83. Okay?
Can you
Now, this is a picture in time, folks, because at any point, this could go, between now and next June, when we finish this budget, June of 2021, there's lots of things that happen. But those are identifiable savings, and one small addition.
Can you explain to me what E-rate is?
It's the federal government's way of reimbursing certain technology-related or communication-related costs to schools throughout the country. It was something that was started by President Clinton many years ago.
That would bring our increase to 3.83. And the total from the first selectman is 2.8.
2.8.
So we need another percent.
So we have identified the fact that, given the large request or reduction, that 4 certified FEE positions would get us to that mark. And we can add the limestone pit cleaning to bring us completely, actually a little bit over the mark.
The science lab.
That's in science.
So, it's much, folks. Charles and I have spoken, and Charles, Stephanie and I have spoken about how to approach this. This is a large number. We've nitpicked this budget, excuse the expression, previous years. We've tried to reinstate. Nothing is cutting from this budget. It's going to be easy, and it is really too early for us to identify exactly where these positions would be. Right now, our kindergarten enrollment looks lower than what I anticipated. That could allow us, if that continues, but registration doesn't occur until next week, we won't know. We get a lot during the summertime. That could be a potential. We have a couple of resignations, a library position, a social studies position. That could be possibilities. We have physical education teachers that we can cut. We have, so those are options that would be on the table that you would have to make as a Board of Education, or you would allow me to make as we move forward. But it's pretty hard to say hard and fast right now in March, because a lot happens between March and August or September.
So do you anticipate still needing the additional first grade section?
We do, because the current kindergarten is your largest section in the entire district. And I mean K-12.
And what about fifth grade?
And fifth grade resumes back to its typical near 100. I don't have the document in front of me, but, and that was our promise, people. We said we were gonna reinstate that position. And also not take it from sixth grade because of the needs of that particular class. But this was a one-year decision.
Any thoughts? Laurel?
No, I mean, no, I would be really, really sad to see this, see us have cut 4 positions. I think it was a good budget. I know we all feel that way, that it was a good budget. So,
A lot of people have asked me about our proposed special education. I could never recommend that you cut that. We wanted to do this now for 3 years. We can't wait any longer.
And
We have,
success with
we
that.
have more than 10 kids that could potentially be part of a very meaningful specialized program in their own home district. So that would be one I wouldn't recommend.
and then, I'm looking at the numbers as a refresher, the amount of money that we're investing in initiating that program is so minimal compared to potential savings for outplacements. That feels like a no-brainer.
What really excites me is the fact that we're not just looking at a specialized program. We're looking at, using resources from outside of our district to help us better understand how to help these children with more significant behavior issues. Building teacher capacity to address it in their classrooms so that we don't have to provide specialized programming, or that we have other options within the district. So we're not just looking at the challenges of student behavior in a individual way. We're really trying to look at it, approach it from many different angles. And building our own capacity is one of those important things.
And would you foresee in the future, assuming that our own in-district needs were met, that would be something that our neighbors and neighboring districts might be interested in looking into?
Potentially, yes, but in talking with my colleague, every district is struggling with the numbers of children who are dysregulated and who are struggling in school. I mean, East Hampton established that program that we now use because of the same challenges that we have. And I think many, many districts have begun similar programs.
Where I struggle a little bit is, maybe you can answer this, is Susan's decision of a budget number based on facts and data, or is it just a random number she picks out of the air?
I can't answer that, other than I know that Tom Robinson spends hours in creating the town budget with the direction of First Selectwoman Bransfield. I know he painstakingly looks at what the town needs and what the board has proposed, and he tries to make it all work.
Shouldn't he then provide us with where he suggests he cuts if he's seeing that we should be at a lower number? He's seeing something that we're not. He should be providing us with that data.
I'm personally glad that it is on us to decide, rather than somebody who's, he's fabulous, but he's a finance person. He's not on the Board of Education. He's not.
Well, that's what I'm
An
getting. I don't
educator.
know how he came to his numbers.
Right.
It'd be nice to see. Then we could
Right.
challenge them, I would think, because him and I talked originally, our original increase was 600,000. 465 is salaries and benefits. So that only leaves $135,000 for everything else we wanna do, and there's not much left over, and that's on the original number, that's not an adjusted number, so I mean, I just don't know if they get the fact that contractually, you know, there's a percentage built in that we can't go below.
Where are you getting that number? What number did you just say?
600,000 was the 2.2 to the 2.8.
Except are you talking about the proposed budget?
No, you reduced your 4.6.
Okay.
The 600.
The 4.46 was more like,
It was 947.
yeah.
Or I mean, no, our budget to the Board of Selectmen budget, sorry. Our is 600,000
Yeah.
over what she's proposing.
Okay, the difference.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, now I understand.
I have this list of paraprofessionals. I normally date this stuff when I get it, but it was a list of, and I'm assuming this was during the 2019-20 school year. The ones in green were new unbudgeted. Is that?
I think
so
we coded it for you.
Right, so we had 18 new unbudgeted paras that were hired during the 20, so when you say 8,
No, it shouldn't be
No,
8.
it's not 80.
It's the one in, not the green, it's the peachy color.
The colors represent, you know, how they're funded, what accounts
all
they're
right,
coming
so
from.
okay, well, there's no legend on it, so I don't know.
Up in the top right, there's a.
Top right hand corner.
LEA additional. So what does that mean, LEA additional? So those are the ones that were hired, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those are, okay, so the green is,
Those were people we
What is the
hired, but,
green?
those were people we hired, but some were in budget already. So it was people
We
that
were
left that we just
replacing
replaced.
somebody, we were, you know, somebody retired, somebody resigned. There are 8
So the
new
8
ones.
The
on
turnover,
this
On that,
basically.
are
right.
the ones that
They're
were
carrying forward, yeah.
carrying forward. See, those were hired during the school year, right?
Correct.
They're currently here now.
They're currently here now.
So, just so I'm clear, are they new positions, or they are just, I wanna be sure I'm
They are new
understanding, they're not
positions.
replacing people who
They are new
hired
positions.
their own.
Donna, you here? Yes, they're new positions.
Right, there's 8 more paraprofessionals.
So we hired 8 during the school year and we're carrying those 8 forward into the new year.
And my understanding was they're primarily required by IEP, correct?
Yes.
Well,
Almost all of our paraprofessionals are driven by plans, their IEPs are covered.
and I thought some, whether it was 1 or 2 or something, were tied to the 5th grade section having
There was a tutor, correct?
We added, do you want me to answer?
I was going to, but go ahead.
We added a special education tutor, who's helping with that. We thought that we might be able to use some paraprofessional support, in those larger settings when the kids have science and social studies. But to be honest, as kids have been identified or come back, we've been using more to cover IEP hours.
So you're using position, but not in the way you originally considered. I'm just wondering what consideration was given to the paras, rather than just looking at the certified teachers, or certified position, what about uncertified, and some kind of balance? I know you don't get to that number as fast, obviously, when you work with,
These are all, believe me, Don and I go back and forth on Paris and have for her entire career here with me. This is a struggle, yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, it's a really small amount of money compared to,
yeah,
I mean, it's
oh, yeah, no, it's, yeah.
$23,000 per hour or something like that. And believe me, as you well have heard me say, they're some of the most valued people we have, and they're driven by kids' needs directly, individual kids' needs.
These programs that we've been building, the ABA lab, the programs at the high school, middle school, these programs would not meet with any of the successes they are with the paras.
Right.
They're the backbone of our learning.
I think you could say the role of the paras in the school system has changed dramatically from, people making copies and, bathrooming kids, whatever. They are really intensely involved, with the success of kids that need them the most.
They're trained to complete, discrete trial instructions, they carry out behavior intervention plans, they interface directly with our BCBA and school psychologists, neuropsychs, and everything, and carry out children's plans.
What I might add is for us to have a more historical look at that question as well, Tim, and that is, as you well know from personnel, we've cut custodians in my 6-year tenure. We've cut secretaries during my 6-year tenure. We originally started to cut paraprofessionals, but the need drove us in this particular way. Right now, we're down to 4 nurses from 5. I made that decision to get us to the end of the year to help this budget cycle out. There are non-certs that have been impacted, if you look at it in a historical way. We have requests for additional secretarial work. I mean, Charles doesn't have a secretary as the former director of curriculum did. We had additional special education secretary when I came. We cut that position. So we have at least 1.5 positions that we cut there. I know we've cut 2 custodial positions. So we have made those cuts as we've moved forward and had to add other things.
Well, and historically, the libraries all had assistants
Oh,
of some
that-
kind doing clerical work, all 4 of those people.
We've cut our
5 of those people
library,
are gone.
library assistants as well.
Yeah.
Forgot that.
They've been cut. Yeah. I just wanna say, you know, we are in such a good place as a district, and what we have coming at us are some challenging behaviors in children, which have to be met. We also have a vision of the graduate, which we haven't completed, which is gonna have to be implemented, which means that there's future money that will have to be spent. And, it seems like, you know, you can keep cutting and cutting and cutting, and we just keep this thing afloat, but we don't really get to do the important parts that would bring us forward a little bit more. I think parents of school children expect us to provide everything, and, you know, I don't wanna see any positions cut. I think those are necessary. I think when we get to 3.83, I think we can make a very good argument that, we cut as much as we can and go back to the Board of Selectmen and say, we can't cut anymore unless we really start cutting services. Schools sustain a town, towns are sustained by good schools. We want young families to come into town. Our grand list went up by $10 million this year. That tells me people are moving into Portland because the schools are good. And if that continues, then that makes this town even better. But we can't just keep cutting this budget and cutting it and cutting it, and we do without a lot as it is, and people that are working in the district work very hard and wear many hats, and I just think 3.83, I don't wanna go any lower than that. That's my final word. I don't wanna look at any more cuts. I don't think we can cut anybody. So,
Well, just looking at the amount after those savings in the orange box, it leaves about $240,888 left to get to what's been proposed by the first selectwoman. And looking at her numbers in terms of the, mill rate and the value of a mill, which is $839,526, that $240,000 is basically 30% of 1 mil. So, just to give you a little perspective.
yeah, I think that translates into, a minimal amount of dollars, a dollar increase to the tax bills.
I went through some of those numbers myself and I didn't bring them.
I believe when we looked at it, we looked at the median home price
Yeah,
of a home in Portland, and what was it, $290?
289 or something.
It was even lower than that. But whatever it was, when we did the math, and this was going from the 4.46% increase, it was about $125 for the average homeowner, or the median homeowner in Portland, $125 for the year.
When
So,
did you do that math? I don't remember.
a couple of us got together and did that math.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's, you know, $125 over the course of 12 months, we're talking, you know, what, $11 a month?
Yeah, well, I think for people who don't get any
Right.
wage increases,
Right.
at all, $11 a month.
I totally understand that everything
It's,
can add
you
up,
know,
but then we're talking also, this is 4.46, not 3.83. So if we are going to 3.83,
Yeah,
that's
it
even
would be-
lower.
It would be lower.
You know, what are we talking here, $9 a month, something like that?
I can say my thing, I'm not in support of cutting 4 certified positions unless you tell me you don't need 4 certified positions. That's how I feel about it. I mean, it's a bad practice to get into, you know, I know in years past, you know, you've gotta make a lot of cuts. If this is a very fortuitous list here that gets us down to 3.83, things that just as a matter of the course of business, and obviously some work was done to find a new provider and vendor for medical and some other changes. But yeah, you know, if we were to really get serious, I mean, the thing no one ever talks about is that everybody's getting an increase, everybody's getting raises, they're getting steps, and I've talked about this before and no one wants to hear it, is, you know, maybe we need a partnership with the school bargaining units and say, you know, we don't wanna lose 4 certified teachers, but if the town doesn't give us the money, how do we move forward? When we try and look at where we can create some savings in a partnership in that way. But you know, I'm not in favor of cutting 4 certified positions off the bat like that. That's my feeling.
Yeah, same. I wouldn't support cuts in teaching positions at all. I think, you know, the budget that we had proposed, or that Philip had presented originally, was a fair one. You know, and I appreciate, you know, both, all of you putting together and looking at ways we can have some savings. It's a minimal increase, you know, like we said, $120 roughly a year per taxpayer is not much of anything. I think a lot of people don't bat an eye at paying more for things like, you know, cable TV service or, you know, other things like that. And I think most people in this town would support a minimal increase in their taxes to provide the good schools that we have here. I would not vote for a budget that cuts positions. We heard the public loud and clear last year that they don't want that. And I think if we go back with a 3.83, that's a fair compromise to me. From what we had originally proposed to what the town is suggesting that we do. You know, if the town thinks that the way that we balance the budget and keep people happy and keep their taxes down is to cut school positions, then I would say let them make that decision. I'm not gonna, you know, I serve on this board as a way to serve the students and the teachers and the parents and the school system, and I don't think cutting 4 teaching positions does that. And, you know, I understand what you all are saying about contract negotiations, but that's not really a partnership if we go back to the teachers and say, would you be willing to forego the raises that you've finally earned after a number of step freezes? That off the table, I don't think. I don't think that's a realistic possibility. I mean, I understand where you're coming from with that, but I don't think that's not a good way to operate any kind of system, in my opinion.
I also, just to pile it on, I also agree. I feel like it's unacceptable to cut certified staff at this point. I would challenge the town to see where else $232,000 could be saved. What is actually more important than 4 certified staff, I would like to know. I agree with Chris that I don't think it's appropriate to go back and renegotiate contracts. I think it is our duty to show our employees that we care about them and that they are valued. These are the people that are teaching our town's children, and we are not a highly paid district. The teachers deserve to be fairly compensated for the very hard work that they do every single day, day in and day out with children.
And just to add to that, one of the things we've discussed at least once or twice over the last year is teacher retention. The fact that we've lost several of our very valued staff members to other districts with better opportunities. And if that's one of our goals moving forward, is to retain our amazing staff, that that's, I think going back and trying to renegotiate at this point would not be in line with that goal.
Is there any evidence that teachers have left us because to another district for a salary increase, that our salaries are so low that they would leave their career here to go?
I'd check with my administrators.
I would just say, because I'm on the personnel, and we look at the comparables throughout, and Portland teachers they're not the highest paid. We're administrators, but they're also far from the lowest paid. If you look at amongst our group, they're in the middle in some respects, and they're kind of towards the top in some. If you look at the starting for new or for old, so there's a lot of data there. If this board wanted to look at it, it's available to look at.
Yeah,
And I'm not suggesting that anybody would go back to make any major changes. But it is I don't know how it's not a partnership to go back and say, hey, this is what we've got to do. Is there anything you can work with us on? The answer could just be no. It's no, we won't do that, and that's fine. And then you say, all right, well, that's a decision we made. At least we looked at that, but to never be willing to even ask it. The driving, and this is just for the future, for now and into the future, when 80% of your budget is salaries, and every single year your salaries are going up 2.5%, 3.5%, 4.5%. If you get into the step system, some people are making 6% increases every, for that middle year of your steps, and with your cost of living increases, and 3.5% in some cases. Nobody's, I think, getting less than 2.75 or 3%. But the taxpayers aren't getting that. They're paying for those increases, but many of those people aren't getting any increase. And I'm not saying the teachers don't deserve them. The administrator, they're negotiated. They, yeah, okay. But when times are tough, and you're talking about cutting into the meat and the bone of the school with certified staff, I think you just have to have everything on the table. You got to just really look at everything and say, what can we do? And just risk, bargaining units, they don't want to set a precedence, and they don't want to say yes. But taxpayers don't have a choice but to say yes, because they repossess your house if you don't pay your taxes, and bye-bye. Somebody else will come in and pick up the house for a song, and so it's about choices and about everybody being fair.
I would just add that we did have a wage freeze in 2012, and we followed suit with town and police, and the morale in the district was very, very low after that happened. If we had to pay teachers by the hour, we couldn't afford them, and would be 300% of the budget, because the hours they put in are not just in the classroom when they start at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7:30. It's the weekends, it's the nights, it's the report cards that are done on their time. I will not support cutting teacher salaries or asking them to renegotiate contracts.
Well, another point to that too, with regards to salary and benefits, which is the biggest line item, is that over the years that I've been a teacher in this state, the major driver of costs has been the increase of insurance costs. So when I first started teaching, it was fairly typical, and this is 20 years ago, but it was fairly typical for teachers to pay 5% of the cost share of their health benefits, and now it's up to 20 in most cases, and that's on top of the increase that insurance companies have handed down. So it's not 100% accurate to say that a minimal cost of living of 2 to 3% for teachers is the driver behind the increased budgets. I mean, you could certainly make a case that private insurance companies, for-profit insurance companies, passing on the costs of those healthcare systems is what's driving a good deal of costs. And we're asking, private companies are in effect asking the taxpayers of primarily locally funded schools, which is what we have here in the Northeast, to keep our system small and our teachers compensated, that it's those private profit insurance companies that are driving up costs. But we can't negotiate that, but we do negotiate with that. We do an incredible job of looking at different providers and trying to keep costs down. But that's a big driver of cost. It's sort of the elephant in the room in a lot of these costs of municipalities funding school systems.
Just to respond to that, benefits are 18%.
It's a good chunk of
The
change.
budget, huh?
That's a good chunk of change.
Salaries are 61%.
And oftentimes what
sal-
happens
and
is
benefits
increase
are-
in salaries
this
basically
budget-
augments the cost of
In this
increased
budget,
benefits.
the benefits are a little under, or were a little under 4 million, and salaries were 13.5 million. So a 2% increase in each of the, it's.
But
the-
So a lot of
the-
times it's a
The bulk of the
wash.
money's going to,
It's
and I'm not here
apples and
advocating that we
oranges,
cut
though.
people's,
I mean,
I'm just
we've
saying.
gone through those
Huh?
we've gone through those contract negotiations where we're increasing salary 2% and asking them to pay 3% more.
Yeah.
On their
Yeah, but
insurance.
nobody
is
in
a
this
loss.
district's
So,
paying
and that's
20%
that's
for
That's
copay.
what,
No, 20% of the total,
of the premium.
yeah,
Of the total
And we're
premium.
getting close on
that's,
some of them.
that's where we're at.
We're getting close to some.
I don't
I
think
don't
we're over
right
15,
there.
are we?
I think we're close.
When
To
you ask,
15?
when you ask
Yeah,
a
I think there are
teacher,
some that are.
Yeah, close to
Yeah.
15, but 15 is not
I don't
20.
have that
That's my
number.
point. You're saying 20, but we're not paying. we're
Okay,
not doing
in
20.
that range. I'm based on the experience that I have with
No, I understand.
contracts where initially, and I'm saying
Right.
20 years ago,
But that's
it's
not
fairly
the-
typical,
Yeah.
5%. Plus, the system that we have with the teacher insurance here is one of those high deductible
it is
systems.
high, very high deductible.
It is high deductible.
It is, which, I mean, I'll be quite honest, most of the teachers that I've talked to that are in systems like that is not a good insurance system for them. I wouldn't want that.
No.
So we're, in effect, asking teachers to shoulder the burden for us of the costs that are being passed on to us by private insurance carriers.
Sounds like a Bernie commercial.
Yep,
No, it's
well,
true.
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And if we could get that out of the way, we'd make a great deal of progress in this country.
Yes, we would. Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I agree with everything that's said. I can't go below the 3.83%. And I'd really want to know, and just for everybody's edification, next March 17th, next Tuesday is the public hearing to go over this. One of us should challenge Susan to her to present where she got those cuts specifically, because I'd like to see where they're getting their math versus where we're getting our math. And if you don't want to do it, I'll be happy to send her an email. I do it a couple times a week anyway on different things. So, but I think that's where we need to find that out, and then we need to find out how do we go about not taking a cut. I mean, philosophically, I mean, how does this play out? I mean, does it
There's
come
no-
down to a point where are we willing to say, okay, if she says I'm gonna stick with my number, do we encourage our residents to defeat the budget with the option that we want higher? Are we willing to go down that road?
Have you ever known that to happen?
Well, somebody
When the
talked about
budget
having a
goes
question on
down.
there about, having it higher or lower.
I looked at the charter, and I can't quite honestly remember what it says, if
Oh.
there are questions allowed in the budget referendum or not.
That would be unusual.
I would
Yeah.
think so.
I guess the only point I'll make is, and we had some of the people in here, is that there's a budget schedule, workshops on the website. Your voice needs to be there at these meetings when Susan and the Board of Selectmen are there, and they're making the cuts and they're finalizing the budgets. We're not finalizing it here, they're finalizing it, so that's where your voice needs to be heard. It's out on the town website.
And that's one thing that's interesting and difficult with the Board of Education budget. We don't make money, we just spend it,
Yeah.
So we don't have any
Mm.
control over trying to make more, because we don't make it, so, it will be interesting. Any other comments from the board? If not, we'll, open it back up to public. If there's anyone from the public who'd like to comment? Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Tatro. I live on Great Hill Road here in town. I missed the first few minutes. I apologize. Can you explain what the $36,400 for the facilities assessment is, please?
Sure. We, entered into a contract with a company whose name is completely escaping me at this point in time.
It's Sightline.
Sightline. To do an assessment of our buildings from top to bottom, all of the mechanical systems, and, structural systems and everything to give us a good, picture of what their status is, what, and kind of, give us an idea of what's gonna need attention sooner as opposed to later, and that kind of thing.
Okay, so that potentially could be deferred if we had to find $36,000, maybe.
No, we really shouldn't, because that's something we've been talking about for years here. We really haven't kept up with our capital maintenance on our elementary schools.
I don't disagree.
10 or 15 years, and we just lost a boiler a few months ago, $80,000. We're gonna lose probably the other one's the same age. We're hearing roofing issues, we've got leaks on chimneys. So there's a lot of lurking issues that we feel we need to get a handle on. Because we may have to go to the Board of Selectmen and say, we need to bond $5-10 million to get our schools up to where they need to be. So without that data, we don't have a leg to stand on.
Okay,
So
thank
we
you.
feel it's
That's kind of
important.
our thought process, we're trying to think ahead.
Yep.
To get an idea as to what those costs are gonna be, and if we need to approach the Board of Selectmen about perhaps putting a bond issue out. When other bonds have retired, we wanna be prepared.
Okay, thanks.
So, that's kind of our thought process.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just to add to what Dave said, we had an issue come up last year with the sprinkler system down at Brownstone, where, I can't remember exactly what happened, but a pipe froze or something when school was out.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have insurance coverage to cover the damage because the system had outlived its useful life by so much. The insurance carrier's position was, you should have replaced that forever ago. So, those are the kinds of things we kinda need to know about, so we can plan accordingly, and that's the purpose of that, and I think it is pretty
Okay.
important that we keep it in there, but I hear
Okay.
what you're saying.
And the Project Lead the Way lab, is that absolutely critical to be done in next year's budget?
All of our labs have been, Nassar Neon, who is our chief technician, has done miraculous work on these very old machines to keep them moving and made adjustments to hard drives. We need to start replacing them. We should have a while back. Plus, the Director of Curriculum, Technology, and Instruction has created a board-approved now plan for replacing technology. So we're trying to follow the plan that's been created.
Okay. I know that there is an application into the Gildersleeve Trust for another replacement of the servers. Is it possible that we can also appeal to them for the $67,000 for Chromebooks, or are we only allowed one a year?
We're only allowed a certain amount, Stephanie,
Okay.
a year. And please remember that what we're going to the Gildersleeve Fund is to get things that weren't, or that were cut from last year's budget.
Okay.
So we're trying to make up last year by going to get that limited amount of funding.
Okay, thank you. The 2.8% increase in transportation, is that part of a contract that's been negotiated? Okay, thank you.
It's the 5th year of a 5-year contract.
Okay. And are we absolutely obligated that we have to get to Susan's number? The number that the Board of Selectmen has included in the budget? I shouldn't lay it on her, I guess.
Well,
So-
go ahead.
Can I just make a point of order? So I know excuse me just for a second.
Yeah.
Are we changing the format of public comment to public answer and question? I know some questions we do answer sometimes, but it feels more
Oh,
we're doing something beyond
sorry.
what we normally do with public comment. And are we setting a precedent here, or are we changing for this?
Well, I think because it's a special meeting related only to the budget, I guess we kind of are,
Okay.
just to answer questions.
I can kind of lay it out as a statement if you would rather.
Oh, no, I'm
Okay.
just to the board, I'm just to the chair,
Yep.
so I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify.
Okay, thanks.
But just, so if we're out answering questions, I'll answer that one part, and I know you will as well, but we're not, the board, it's up to the board to decide what we think the reasonable estimate of costs are to send to the board, which we did send to the Board of
Yes.
Selectmen. First Selectwoman has looked at it, and she's proposing to her Board of Selectmen a number lower than that. So we either fall in line and we agree to that or we push back on that and say no. Ultimately, we don't have to make any cuts. We can make our case. At the end of the day, if the Board of Selectmen says, well, this is what you're gonna get, then it's our job with our superintendent, well, it's really our superintendent's and Stephanie's job, to give us some proposals for us to look at to live within that budget. Is that a fair answer?
It is. Perfect.
Okay. Just a couple more.
Breaking precedents.
I have such respect and admiration for the teachers that we have in this district. I really have I really don't want to see this budget not pass. I think that what we went through last year was horrendous. And does it have to be an all or nothing in the 2.5% increase that the teachers have? Can we ask them, would you consider giving back 0.5% or 1%? So not that I don't want to do that. I would not. I would rather not, because I think when you have a valuable, positive education system, it increases the value of the homes in your town. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that. Nobody wants to live in a town where the school system sucks because they don't want their kids there. So I think we need to have a long game view sometimes of where we're going. So if we have to get there, maybe that's one thing that we can talk about. With regards to the 4 positions in the blue box, have you identified which schools these teachers would come from if we had to do that?
No.
Okay. And then in the, not in here, but in the budget that was presented last week, or that I got last week when it was presented, there's a line item, I think it's $812,000 for purchased services. What's in that line? I think that's what it's called.
It's a lot of our contracts or maintenance plans that we have. A lot of it is now,
It'll be special education.
right, so special education, there's a new way that we budget where for Medicaid reimbursement, a lot of the charges in the past have been charged to our tuition line, 560001, 56003. We can now split out any type of OT, PT, any type of services we receive into that purchase service line so that we could claim Medicaid reimbursement for that. So it's for our benefit, but it does drive that line